Welcome to Midweek Connection. I'm so glad to be with you this evening. Coming to you from my back porch here in Bel Air, Florida. And wanted to share a few things I feel may be interesting to you this evening. I want to encourage those of you who have not shared in our service at First Unity Spiritual Campus this last Sunday to consider going and watching those archives. It's on YouTube and on Facebook. It's also, I believe, still on our website, www.firstunity.org, in the media section. And just go check it out and take a look at some of the thoughts around that. I've continued to work with this idea of doing that work of letting go of labels, letting go of identifying factors, not being so attached to these temporary things, our personalities and our personas, to find a way into the deeper part of ourselves, to let go of taking things so personal as we journey through this life, and learning what life really is all about. And speaking of life, I wanted to share with you a few things that really come out. I think some of these ideas come out of the mystical tradition of both the Catholic Church as well as the early Desert Fathers, and we would have heard some of these kind of tones from Father Thomas Merton, from Father Keating. We would have heard some of these ideas, and probably would hear some of these ideas from Richard Rohr. We would have heard a lot of these ideas, I think, also out of the East in terms of life and the regeneration of life and what life really is and life's journey. I sat down to write about my thoughts on that this morning, and thought I would share some of that writing with you this evening and see if it resonates with you. Because, life can often feel like just some kind of a big puzzle. It can feel like that we're trying to piece everything together. It can feel like as we travel on this journey that we're out of control. And the truth is that we are. I've told you about my t-shirt that says, "Relax, nothing is under control." This is exactly the way I'm feeling right now, where I'm able to take my hands off of the wheel. I almost hear Carrie Underwood singing in my ears, "Jesus, take the wheel." Christ consciousness, take the wheel. Buddha nature, take the wheel. I am letting go of my need to control anything. I'm releasing that need to control. Even coming into a more quiet space of being, as I mentioned this last Sunday as well. Many of us see life definitely as a puzzle. Many of us see it as merely time that ticks on between birth and death. But there's something from the womb to the tomb that I believe we need to become conscious of, become aware of. And it's so much more than just religious do's and don'ts. It's so much more than just career. It's so much more than having spouses and families and achieving. It's so much more than just ambition. And I think the older I get, the more I'm attuned to meaning rather than ambition. And living every moment meaningful. Not that life has any meaning. I bring the meaning to life. Just like I don't know that anything is sacred unless I believe unless you believe for you that it's sacred. So I don't want to just scratch the surface about what life is in terms of thinking that it's just seconds and minutes that tick by from birth to death. Life, I believe, is really a rich, beautiful, gorgeous, and complex tapestry woven from our experiences and our emotions and our connections that we make along the way. But ultimately, it stretches from our original origin, otherwise known as Source, God. Life is not just about this earth journey either. There's phases, if you will, of this life journey. And the phases that we've forgotten, maybe not experienced yet or experienced repeatedly, somehow along the way, many of us have forgotten who we are. Our biggest issue, I think, is that we have a sense of amnesia. We've forgotten that in some way we have already chosen this journey. And I think that makes it a lot easier to deal with life as it unfolds, to be able to see it and understand that in some way I've chosen this journey. I believe it's a connection stretching from our origins, often referred to as the source or God, and then back to that very same source again. And it's a process of learning. When we embrace this particular perspective, we start to bring this kind of perspective close to us. I think we start to see life as a continuous journey. It's filled with all kinds of twists and turns and color and sounds and drama. You know, so many of us talk like we don't want surprises in our life, when we don't want drama in our life, and yet we pay to go see movies. The truth is that if you started a book with complete and total peace and stillness, and you had complete and total stillness and peace in the midst of that book, and you ended the book the same way, most of us wouldn't buy that book. We wouldn't go see that movie. We wouldn't watch that TV show, because there's something about these ups and downs that we really actually do desire in some way in our human experience. And as God beings who are traveling through this human experience, I believe that we are on a continuous journey, and it has a lot of twists and turns, and it has a lot of ups and downs. It has a series of checkpoints. Checkpoints maybe to pass or to fail. Maybe it's like a big video game. Maybe this is just one kind of an experiment. I mean, imagine the freedom that comes when we release the fear of death, because we know that this is a continuum. We release the fear of death, and instead of focusing on death and the fear of it, we truly start to live. We start to unearth that hidden treasure that's on the inside of us. We start to realize that there's no reason to hold back from feeling and from living fully and from being fully awake and fully aware and fully alive. When you don't fear death, you begin to fully live. In this infinite world, we often feel boxed in by the rules, by the expectations, by the labels that I mentioned this last Sunday. And often we forget who we truly are, because there's so many other levels of selves that we think we are. There's so much more to this existence than just checking a box. There's so much more to this existence than what we've been taught. We have been taught to live so small. I had a friend that mentioned something about being in traffic, and mentioned about how much technology we have and how far we've come as humanity. And this is what we're choosing to do. The fighting that we see in politics, and the disillusion and the illusion of all of it, and the fighting amongst religions and religious groups. And we're playing so small when there's a big wide open expanse that's asking to be seen from us. Our true self is boundless and can never really be boxed up. Life is not about screwing up. Life is not about failing, because there's so much more to existence than just clicking that box and checking that box. This is not a test that you're going to fail. I mean, what if I told you you couldn't fail this test? Would you drop all of the suffering around thinking that you have to achieve a particular thing? I believe that life is about truly embracing the infinite possibilities that lie currently in our present moment and lie ahead of us. Allowing ourselves to grow, to unfold, to become the best version of ourselves that we can be in this particular life journey. And so I'm asking us to consider this evening, diving into this journey with open hearts and open minds. Get ready to explore all that life has to offer. As we start to come into 2025, I've really felt drawn toward the theme, and I'm not sure yet, I'm not saying this is the theme, but fully alive in 2025. To really systematically start to peel off those parts of us that are not really us. To start to peel back those layers so that we can examine who we truly are. And this is maybe somewhat of an introduction to it, as I talk about the phases of life. And this is what I wrote down today. Let's explore these phases together. If you will, just flatter me this evening and be with me on this. Number one, the first phase, I believe, is an emanation from source. Every life begins with a spark of existence that emerges from the source. We all have an emanation point in the phase of life. Imagine it really as a bright light shining forth, bringing with it the essence of all that is. And that essence, that spark, is on the inside of you. We are all from the same source. We all come from the same divine parent. Father, mother, neither. You don't have to title it anything. It's the ground of being, the source. And so that's the first phase of life. Not just life on this planet. See, I'm not just talking about life on this planet. I think we think too small because we get too stuck in the years that I have experienced life as a human being, and we forget that we are spiritual beings having a human experience and expression. But this human experience and expression is temporary. Our spiritual beingness is eternal, ongoing. We are all from the same source. Each of us have that same spark of divinity within us. Not everybody is acknowledging it. And those who do acknowledge it have that special ongoing relationship with the presence of God, the pure presence. Doesn't mean anybody's any worse or better than the other. It just means that when you are actively walking in and choosing to wake up to your divine potential and your divine nature, that you have a special relationship. So it reminds me of the scripture, I believe it's in Thessalonians in the Christian Bible, that talks about Jesus as the Savior of the world, especially those who believe. And in other words, you could say it this way: Jesus, that essence, that Christ essence, is the Savior, the one who reconciles of the world, but has a special relationship with those who believe. So you could say that if you were living the Christian life, that being born again and being saved would mean that you have a special relationship with God. It's not special and someone else's relationship it lacks specialty. That's not what that means. It just means you have a specific unfolding of that nature. You're aware of it. You're awake to it. That's what it means to be born again. And it doesn't mean someone else is wrong or less than you, but it could mean that they're choosing hell over heaven. And when I say that, I don't mean hell after they die. I mean hell in the life that is really created from not being fully aware of who you are. So we all emanate from that same source. This is one of the reasons that, as I mentioned Sunday, if we're really going to live a life of unfolding unconditional love, we're going to need to get rid of these labels that we put on other people. We'll start by getting rid of the labels that we put on our own self. Because labels are static. Labels they're not a living organism. So why label someone who's a living organism? If you know someone is going to change already, because that's the nature of life, then how could you believe that you could freeze them to a particular ingredient that's subject to change at any moment? See, we're computing 40 million bits of information per second, approximately. So as you do that, you change. The person who sat down to turn this device on and watch this midweek connection, you will biologically be a different person before this session is over. You've already changed. Every five minutes, they can't even keep up with the calculation of how you're changing. 88% of the dust in your house is dead skin cells. What does that tell you? That means you're sloughing off, you're shedding even your own skin on a regular basis. So why do we get so stuck, again, with these labels? Remember that the first phase of life is the emanation from source. The second phase is the pre-incarnate existence. So after this initial spark, after this initial concept, we could say an idea, a divine idea in the heart mind of God that was you. After the initial spark, we exist as individual souls. And so the spark happens, we develop and become a soul, a living soul, and we have yet to take physical form. So I'm just trying to walk us through what I believe transpires in the ether and in eternity. There's the emanation from source, and then there's the pre-incarnate existence, the soul, your true soul self, who is birthed out of the heart mind of God and exists without a form. So you don't need a formula yet. In this phase, you're filled with the potential. The divine fills you with the divine's nature, with all of the potential that you need, and it's waiting for the right moment to dive into the adventure of living the human life. But it doesn't mean that life starts. Life does not start when the egg is fertilized by the sperm. Now, I know that there are pro-lifers who say that life begins there. Life does not begin there. Life began far before even you were a sparkle or a twinkle in your father's eyes. Before there was ever a moment of desire towards sexual intercourse to create your physical body, you as a life existed because life doesn't start even at the conception. Life starts way before then in the pre-incarnate existence. And it's waiting for the right moment to get into the adventure of the human life. Think of it as a prep for launch. And the thing is, I believe that if we will get into a spiritual practice, we will start to remember what has been dismembered and disjointed through this process of being brainwashed toward thinking that our human existence is the only existence. So that's the pre-incarnate existence. Number 3 is the incarnate experience and existence. Here comes the exciting part. And this is when we start to get the excitement of living the human experience. We put on our spacesuits. Or as my friend Reverend Amy Crisas says, we put on our skin suits. And now we have the spacesuits and we step into this world. And whether it's the earth realm, now I know this gets woo-woo for some people, or it's another realm, another planet. There's life all over the place because life is always happening. In fact, that is the nature of life. So whether it's this earth realm or it's another earth realm, we enter into a vibrant tapestry of experiences, emotions, lessons, blessings, pains, sufferings, experience, because we are in a particular curriculum. We're here to learn. And this is where we truly live, in the present moment. So we are an emanation from the source. We start out as a pre-incarnate existence, and then we incarnate into our spacesuits, and we start to have that incarnation experience. It's the same thing that Jesus experienced, same thing that the Buddha experienced. We are all experiencing. The question is, are we going to take their example and wake up to our true and original self? And then here's another thing that I really think is true. Then there's the disincarnate experience. It's number 4. Once our time in this incarnation comes to an end, and it will, again, this is why we understand death is not the end of life. It's not the opposite of life. Death may be the opposite of birth, but it's not the opposite of life. So death actually doesn't even land in the same category as life. It's really just an opening to your next disincarnate experience. So once our time in the incarnation has come to an end, we shed the physical form. And in this phase, we reconnect with our soul family. And we, at that point in time, I believe we start to reflect on the life we just lived, cherishing those memories, learning from our experiences, almost debriefing from the class that we took. It's a time of healing and preparation for whatever's next. I want you to think about this. I believe this would bring you comfort. This brings me comfort. I was thinking about Bishop Pearson as I'm writing this disincarnate experience portion and thinking he is in some way in another iteration at another space and time. Now, I believe in many ways debriefing and then preparing for whatever is next, because that 4th part is disincarnate, but the 5th part is a reincarnation experience. And here's what happens. I believe with a newfound wisdom, because we're growing, we're evolving, with the newfound wisdom, we choose to return and take on another spacesuit of some sort somewhere in the galaxies and in the universe. I know this sounds strange to some folks, but stay with me a moment. And we continue our journey, because life didn't start with your birth into this particular persona, in this particular body, as a male or a female, as an American or a Chinese person or a European. Life started way before all of this. And in that reincarnated stage, we put on another spacesuit and we continue our journey. Each life presents to us unique challenges, unique lessons, another level of the curriculum, and it helps us grow and evolve. Life is all about evolving and growing. It's all about going from glory to glory, strength to strength, faith to faith. Here a little, there a little, expanding constantly, being born again. As Father Thomas Merton said, I was saved, I am saved, and I will be saved. I was born again, I am born again, and I will be born again. This is the process of reincarnation. And yes, I do believe that it's not necessarily held to a physical thing, that this life this life phase, these phases of life can actually take place in one human life. I believe that you can experience full and complete liberation. But it will happen when we drop off our fear of death. It will happen when we realize just what life actually is. That life is not this physical incarnation. Life is the energy of the divine. And it's ever emerging. And we're growing from glory to glory, strength to strength, faith to faith. Now, stay with me here. Number 6 is merging or re-merging with Source. Once we go through these processes, once we walk through the emanation from Source, the pre-incarnate existence, the incarnate experience, the disincarnate experience, the reincarnate experience, there is a merging with the Source. And this is essentially what is taught. It is. Some people will say, well, this sounds like you're talking about the caste system in Hinduism. In many ways, it is. It's kind of like it's kind of like the stages that we go through on our way back to fully understanding who we are. Because all of us came here with a round trip ticket. And all of us eventually will merge back with the Source. Finally, we reach a profound realization, a deep understanding of unconditional love in all its forms. And at this stage, we recognize that there's no longer a need to feel or to experience or to believe that we are separate existence, that we're individuals. We all actually are one. We all are a part of the same Source, birthed from the same Source and connected to that consciousness in a conscious contact kind of way. We start to return fully. Once we realize this oneness, we return fully to the Source, where we are one with all that is, fully and completely embracing the unity of life, of Zoe. Again, please let me point out that life is not, let me say it this way to break it down. September the 2nd, 1977, according to my birth certificate, I was born. It is currently December of 2024. I'm 47 years old based on a calendar. That is not life. That is my existence in this particular form. Life is so much higher. Life is that divine emanation. Life is God. Life is divine. Life is that energetic creativity that comes from the Source. See, because God is not even energy. God is back behind. The energy is the manifestation that God exists. God can't even be talked about. God can't even be discussed, not really. That is such a huge, massive spaciousness. And out of that spaciousness emerges these phases of life. But life is not that 1977 to 2024 and however much longer that this human incarnation of John lives in this existence. We find in this final merging of with the Source, our soul emergence and merging with, we find there a full embrace of absolute unconditional love, beyond form and formula, beyond label. And in that space, we find that we are one with all that is. And we embrace the complete and total unity of life. Through these phases, we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to move closer to the essence of our unconditional agape love self and that connection with Source. We are here, each one of us, to step in this journey of vitality. And this reminds us that life is not just a series of events. It's a profound, transformative, ongoing experience. And you know what? It takes the pressure off. There's nothing to get perfect. You don't have to get it. There's nothing to achieve. I've said to us before that the way this is starting to unfold to me with such a high level of peace is this realization, this beautiful realization, complete liberation, complete and total freedom. That I don't have to achieve anything. I don't have to be anybody. There's no cosmic point system. Nobody's keeping score. And so I let go now and release myself into complete freedom. Complete and total freedom in regards of truly living. So life is not just a series of events, a bunch of labels, titles, achievements. Life is a constant, beautiful, unfolding, transformative experience and experiment that happened before I arrived here, will continue to happen when this persona, this skin suit is unzipped and my true soul steps out of it and emerges back with the source. My friend, if we can learn to die while we're alive, we can experience this in the here and now. This is really what Buddha experienced, what Jesus Christ experienced, what many great sages and teachers and what we would have called ascended beings, that's all they were pointing to, was that they realized that they could shed off all of the things that were not them. And in that place, that's where they found freedom. You will find the same freedom as you shed off, you get rid of all of the things that are not you. Remember this, as I know I've repeated myself with this, but I want us to really hear it. It is hard. It is contentious. It is chaotic, painful, filled with suffering to be what you're not. But it takes no effort to be who you truly are. And this is the invitation. To start to see these phases of life and go, oh yeah. I emanated from source originally, and so did that other person who I may not like. I was a pre-incarnate soul. That was my existence for a season. And in that place, I was filled with all of the potential. I was given all of the tools that I needed. It was implanted into my soul space. Everything I needed for this adventure that we call life. And then I experienced the incarnation. And this was a vibrant, complex tapestry of experiences, emotions, and lessons. And I'm taking the curriculum. And at some point, John, all of you who are watching, will experience the disincarnate experience. And that's where you unzip. Spacesuit. You reconnect with your soul family. What I believe CDP is doing now. And you maybe reflect on that experience. Can you just imagine all of your loved ones, those that you miss, sitting at the table, reflecting on their experience? And this is what I experienced when I was there on planet Earth. Life is all about growing and evolving. And that's what you would do in that reincarnate experience. You would start to look back over that life and you would say, what can I use to grow? And then you reincarnate again in some way, somewhere, in another iteration. But the ultimate goal is to merge back with the source. Can I do that before I die the physical death? Yes. Yes. And this is what I believe it means when it talks about being born again or experiencing nirvana and enlightenment. But it will require the sacrifice of this firm, strong belief in my temporary physical self. Most of all, through all of these phases, I'm asking you to consider that what's going to unfold for you more than anything else will be the next level each time of agape, unconditional love, and full connection to your divinity. All right, friends, that's what I have for you this evening. I love you very much. Thank you for considering supporting this community. Thank you for considering financially giving to this community. Ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, I know that ultimately, none of this matters. It's mattering because I believe that it matters. Maybe you believe that it matters. But if this message is feeding your soul, I'm asking you to consider feeding the account that pays for this message to feed your soul. And consider an end of the year gift. One Love Consciousness Movement. The ways to give will be on the screen on the way out. I love you all. Now go and make it a great evening, because